My husband abandoned me, someone without parents, and my daughter who was given only 6 months to live. I ran into this same husband 20 years later at a shopping mall.
What? You're still alive?
Huh?
And then our daughter passed away, didn't she? If that's the case, you're truly alone in the world, aren't you? I even thought you might have hanged yourself by now.
He continued, unfazed by my shocked expression.
Living there all alone, you're definitely lonely, it seems. It's a pity. Compared to your situation, I'm happy, you know?
Despite no one asking, he kept on blabbering.
Nowadays, I spend my days living with my son and taking care of my grandchild. It's blissful.
It's ironic how he boasts about being happy, considering his tattered appearance. His clothes are dirty, his hair thinning, and he carries only a cheap, bulging, reusable grocery bag.
I've remarried, have a grandchild, and I'm happy, while you're still alone at this age. You're miserable. Your life sucks because I left you, doesn't it? But it doesn't matter to me anymore.
My discomfort had reached its peak. What's with this guy? I couldn't help but say a word to this man who was getting too cocky. And then, at that moment, a voice echoed from behind.
What'd you say about my wife?
Afterwards, my ex-husband turned pale and began to tremble. My name is Kimberly Scott, and I'm a 50-year-old housewife. I currently live with my beloved husband, Timothy Scott, and I have a daughter named Melissa. Melissa, who is now 25 years old, is also happily married to a wonderful man, and their relationship is excellent. She's currently pregnant with her first child and often comes back to our family home, seeking to be pampered. It's enjoyable for me to prepare for Melissa's childbirth. The one day, while shopping at a large shopping mall, I bumped into someone.
Hey, aren't you Kimberly?
As I glanced back and caught sight of that person, a flood of memories suddenly rushed back. In fact, my husband, Timothy, is my second marriage. Before meeting Timothy, I had been a homemaker for 6 years in my first marriage. I worked as a clerk at a small company when I was young. Since I didn't have parents and was raised by my grandmother, our family wasn't wealthy, so I've been working since high school. When I was 23 years old, my grandmother passed away, leaving me feeling truly alone in the world. That's why I began to want to have my own family as soon as possible. It was around that time that I met my ex-husband, Harrison Young. He worked at the same company as me and was 3 years older. He worked in the sales department.
I have always thought you were cute, Kimberly.
I was swept up by those words and ended up going to eat with Harrison. Before I knew it, our relationship started and we got married 2 years later. I was happy to be able to have my own family back then. Harrison's income wasn't that good, so I continued working even after we got married. However, Harrison said he didn't want to work at the same company as me, so I found a job at a different company. What I realized after getting married was that he was quite domineering. He would make me do all the housework, but wouldn't help and would criticize me about various things.
That's why women without parents are like this. No matter what you do, you're no good.
I was regularly subjected to such words and looked down upon, but I was afraid of returning to being alone, so I chose to continue my married life with him. Eventually, I became pregnant with Harrison's child. Even during my pregnancy, my husband ordered me around without showing any concern for me. I obediently followed his orders while nurturing our unborn child. Eventually, I gave birth, and our daughter Melissa was born. However, even after childbirth, Harrison didn't change. Instead of helping with childcare, he would yell, "Shut up," when Melissa cried at night, and sometimes even throw me and the child out of the house. He didn't show much affection for Melissa either, and I never saw him hold her. Even though I was busy with childcare, I wasn't allowed to slack off on housework, and I would receive verbal abuse if I didn't do even a little bit. With such a life, the only thing that supported me was Melissa, who was growing up fast. It was around the time Melissa turned 3 years old that Harrison claimed his work got busier and he started spending more time away from home. During weekdays, he would often work overtime, and on weekends, he would go somewhere. However, it was normal for him not to help with housework and childcare, so I didn't feel dissatisfied about it. Instead, I even thought it was a relief that there was less housework since he wasn't at home. I was so busy with work, housework, and childcare that I didn't even think to suspect my husband. As time passed, around the time Melissa turned 5 years old, she started complaining of feeling tired more often, and she began having a low-grade fever and nosebleeds all the time. When we took her to the hospital for a thorough examination, the doctor told me a shocking fact.
Your daughter has leukemia.
I felt my mind go blank. The doctor explained that leukemia is a cancer of the blood, and that Melissa has only 6 months to live if treatment is unsuccessful. I bid farewell to Melissa, who was immediately hospitalized, and went back home for a while.
Why the pale face? Where's my food?
Even at a time like this, Harrison, grumpy as ever, barks out orders. So I told him, Melissa has leukemia. At this rate, she only has half a year to live. Perhaps shocked by the news, Harrison remained silent. What should we do? If we lose her, As I break down in tears, my husband says to me,
Well, that's convenient.
Huh? His face, as I looked up, was unbelievably cold.
Listen, Kimberly, we're getting divorced. I was planning to hold off until Melissa grew up a bit, but with just half a year left, she'll be gone, right?
What? Divorce? What are you talking about? Melissa needs treatment from now on.
Since we're at it, let me tell you. I have a woman I love, and we even have a healthy child together.
I was struck with a sensation like being punched in the head. So all those times he claimed he was working and not at home were lies? He had a woman and he even had a child? He laughed at my confusion.
You're irrelevant to me. Melissa isn't cute at all. I'm going to live happily with my new family, so sign the divorce papers quickly.
I found myself with no energy to resist further, and before I knew it, I had agreed to the divorce. I demanded $20,000 for medical expenses, but he refused to pay. My in-laws, upon learning this, tearfully apologized to me and offered to provide the money in his place. One day, while lying in bed, Melissa asked me, Mommy, did you say goodbye to Daddy? Yes, I'm sorry, Melissa, but you have Mommy, okay? That's fine. As long as I have you, Mommy, I'm happy. And so Melissa and I embarked on the journey of treatment together. Despite various medications, Melissa's condition did not improve, so we ultimately decided to proceed with a bone marrow transplant. As Melissa had no siblings, I volunteered to donate my bone marrow. The success rate was not high, but we decided to give it a try. After the bone marrow transplant, fortunately, Melissa's condition began to improve. Still, she required a long hospital stay, so I visited the hospital frequently. Then one day at the hospital, someone approached me.
Kim? Is that you? Aren't you Kim?
When I turned around, I saw a classmate from elementary school standing there. He had always been kind and had a strong sense of justice, often intervening when I was teased because I didn't have parents. That person would later become my second husband.
It's you, after all. What a coincidence to meet here.
He smiled kindly at me. I suggested we move to another place to talk. When asked, Timothy said that he was visiting his father in the hospital.
My father doesn't have much time left, so I'm busy preparing to take over the company. That's why I'm still single. What about you, Kimberly? Are you married already?
Actually, I confided in Harrison that I have a daughter undergoing leukemia treatment, was abandoned by my ex-husband, and now lead a difficult life, but the only solace is that my daughter is heading towards recovery. After hearing my story, Timothy said this to me.
That must have been tough. I think you've been doing really well all by yourself. Hey, Kim, if there's anything I can do for you, just let me know.
Thank you, Timothy. Afterward, Timothy and I exchanged contact information and started talking regularly. Having someone to confide in, someone I could share my burdens with, was a relief. I genuinely appreciated that. Timothy started sending books and flowers for Melissa. When I thanked him, he shyly said,
Seeing you smile makes me happy. Let me do what I can for your daughter.
Huh?
Did you ever realize, Kim, that I've had a crush on you since we were kids? Didn't you notice?
At that moment, I felt my heart racing for the first time in a long while. Afterward, Melissa was discharged from the hospital safely and was able to attend elementary school. Melissa, who at one point was even told that she had only 6 months to live, is now in good health. For that alone, I was grateful to God. Later, Timothy confessed to me.
Kim, would you accompany me through life from now on? I promise to make you and your daughter happy.
But, Timothy, I'm a divorcee.
It doesn't matter. You've always been serious and hardworking. I like that about you, Kim. Please, stay by my side.
With Melissa's encouragement, I officially started dating Timothy. We met several times, including with my daughter, and she also grew fond of Timothy. By the time Melissa turned 10, Timothy and I got married. It had been 5 years since the divorce from Harrison. Since then, Timothy, Melissa, and I have lived as a happy family. I hoped to continue living peacefully with my loved ones. Just as I was thinking that, I encountered him again. My ex-husband, Harrison, who felt like the devil.
Hey, what's wrong, Kimberly? You seem out of it.
I was brought back to reality by Harrison's voice. Oh, long time no see. As I said that, Harrison grinned, revealing his yellow teeth while staring at me.
What's up, Kimberly? Still alive?
Huh?
Melissa passed away after that, didn't she? You know, then you truly are all alone in the world. I thought you'd hanged yourself by now.
I was too stunned to speak, and my ex-husband continued.
Being alone in a place like this, there's no doubt you're lonely. Poor thing. Compared to that, I'm happy, you know?
Despite not asking, Harrison kept on blabbering.
After that, I remarried the girlfriend I was dating. My son is excellent, graduated from a famous university, and now works for a top-tier company. A true elite.
Huh.
Nowadays, I spend my days taking care of my grandchildren while living with my son. I'm as happy as can be.
Harrison boasted proudly, but his appearance was worn out. His clothes were dirty, his hair thinning, and he was carrying only a shabby grocery bag.
Remarried with grandchildren, I'm happy. While you've been alone all these years. Pathetic, isn't it? Being dumped by me, life must have been the worst, right? But honestly, I don't care anymore.
My discomfort had reached its peak. Who did this guy think he was? I couldn't let this man, who was getting too cocky, off the hook without saying a word. Then, in that moment, a voice echoed from behind.
What about my wife?
When I turned around, there was Timothy and the heavily pregnant Melissa, who were doing something separately. Is this person? Seeing Melissa's face contort as she looked at me, I nodded. Then, Melissa instantly averted her gaze and made sure not to look at Harrison. On the other hand, Harrison still seemed unable to grasp the situation.
My wife? And who is that woman?
So I introduced him to my family. This is my current husband, Timothy, and this here is your daughter, Melissa.
What? Melissa, she's alive?
Timothy then informs the astonished Harrison.
I've heard you've been saying some terrible things to my wife, haven't you? Could I ask for an apology?
Dressed in a well-tailored suit, exuding authority, Timothy looks at Harrison, who turns pale.
Who are you? Excuse me? I'm Timothy Scott, the owner of this shopping mall. I'm glad you've been a patron of ours.
With a smile, Timothy takes out his business card. Indeed, Timothy was the president of a company that operated several large shopping malls. He was considered one of the top celebrities in the local area. Comparing his business card to Timothy's face, Harrison muttered tremblingly.
The president of such a big company is marrying into my family? That's absurd. No, it's the truth.
Timothy interjects without pause.
We are living happily as a family. As you can see, our grandchild will be born soon. Kimberly is not alone like you think, you know? Whatever, I'm leaving.
Terrified of Timothy and wearing an awkward expression, Harrison immediately tried to turn on his heels. But he was immediately restrained by a clerk in front of us. The clerk looked surprised as he gazed at Timothy's face.
Huh? The president? And your wife too? Why are you both here?
Timothy calmly replied,
Just a family shopping trip. And by the way, why are you restraining this person?
The clerk's face contorted as he seized Harrison, who tried to resist with a violent outburst.
This man is a habitual shoplifter. Huh?
Items like food and children's clothing continued to come out of Harrison's grocery bag that hadn't been paid for. Afterward, Melissa was asked to do something else, and Timothy and I moved to the back with a detained Harrison. Why would you resort to shoplifting?
Shut up! Let me go.
The cleric, who knows what is going on, explains with a sigh on his behalf, as Harrison is in no condition to talk. Surprisingly, Harrison remarried his affair partner, but when their child turned 3, she disappeared after finding another man, leaving him. It seems Harrison has been raising the child alone since then, but unfortunately the son ended up going astray. Even so, the son has grown up, married, and they apparently started living together. However, that very night, the company where Harrison worked went bankrupt. Harrison was unemployed, but his son and daughter-in-law did not work, and they had a grandson. Harrison's son has spent all his retirement money, and he was helpless, so he turned to shoplifting out of sheer destitution. Oh, it's so different from what I've heard. I said this coldly, and Harrison glared at me.
Don't you dare pity me just because you're rich now.
There's no choice but to pity this situation.
Shut up! Just go somewhere else already.
Upon being shouted at, I left a parting remark to the clerk. I don't mind if we call the police.
Huh? The police? That's trouble. They've said it'll be a prison sentence if I do it again, you know? You're my ex-wife. Cut me some slack.
At that moment, I intervened decisively. Be quiet. You're beneath contempt. Whatever happens to you doesn't concern me. At most, deal with your own actions. Leaving behind a wailing Harrison, I departed from the scene with Timothy. The clerk later told me that they handed Harrison over to the police, just as I had instructed. Harrison had repeated the same offense multiple times and ended up behind bars. Even after serving his sentence, he'll only have his worthless son's family waiting for him. There's no bright future ahead for someone like him. However, I have no sympathy whatsoever for Harrison. Rather, I just think he's getting what he deserves. On the other hand, I continue to live peacefully with Timothy. Recently, Melissa had a baby, and Timothy and I are over the moon. We hope to continue supporting each other as a family and live happily ever after. Thank you for watching until the end. Please like the video and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.